The beauty here is that, as you can see, we work alongside the kids, right, every day. I mean, I'm literally 5 feet away from some of the strongest people I've ever met. And so that in itself is a gift. And I see it when I talk to my managers, the professionals who chose to be in the team. They're so overwhelmed with a sense of purpose of working here, and so am I. And then also, the passion also of everybody in the team is what keeps me going. I mean, if that weren't there, I would have given up already.
Welcome back, everybody. Rich Baker, Shanghai-based social entrepreneur here in Manila, meeting with Krie Lopez from Messy Bessy. Just had a great conversation talking a little bit about her product here and how she's used this model to educate over 100 students in the Metro Manila area.
I'm Krie Lopez. I'm the founder and CEO of Messy Bessy and our nonprofit arm, House Foundation. So what we do is we run a for-profit business, which is a manufacturer and retailer of natural home and personal care products. But this is really just a way for us to provide education and employment and rehabilitation for at-risk youth.
What's the size of the challenge here in the Philippines, and what's the root causes of that challenge?
Well, the statistics say there are around 4 to 5 million young adults, meaning aged around 15 to 25, who are out of any formal job and out of school. So that's kind of the cleanest number that we have right now. And basically the kids that we take into the program fall in this category. So they're 18 and above, they're out of school, they're out of a job for one reason or another.
And then what would they be doing otherwise?
Some of them work in very informal jobs, and some of them are just literally just living on the streets, doing drugs, selling drugs, and some sadly are into sex trafficking and all that.
So they would be at risk, they'd be in this environment. How do you reach out to them? How do you access these kids when they're in that vulnerable place?
Yeah, so in the beginning, we did a lot of actually going to the communities and recruiting kids. We also partner with organizations that deal with the heavier cases, like the victims of abuse, of trafficking. And then right now we get a lot of referrals. We get to post on Facebook. 90% of those online in the Philippines are on Facebook. And so we reach out to kids, and there's an endless supply of kids who we can take in. So yeah, that's how we reach out.
And then what's the first step? How do the kids come in, and what's the process for them as they're going through your organization?
So when they come in, they go through a pretty rigorous assessment. So it's not really a pass or fail assessment, but it's really just to figure out what level they're at so that we know where to meet them. Another thing we do is really to make sure we get one parent involved, or one, if they don't have parents, one person in the community involved, just so we have one person who's on our side as we're doing this. This is very difficult because they go home every day to wherever they're from, and if they're not getting whatever support, they are there. So those people need to understand what we're doing here. And that's why we have this space, because every so often we bring in their guardians and their parents, and to kind of just remind them of what we're about and what their kids are doing.
So we're here, I mean, basically these products fund the entire operation. So can you talk about a little bit of the history and how you started the organization?
Yeah, so believe it or not, I started this myself. I got recipes from the web, like baking soda, vinegar, essential oils. We packaged them and sold them. The first 2 months we were in operation, I think our sales were at $2,000, which was pretty good for nothing, for starting from nothing. But it grew, triple digit every year, and then double digit ever since, until today we're still growing double digit. And I think we're very, very serious in terms of creating really good products. If you look at them, there's really nothing on it that blatantly says we're a social enterprise, we're helping these kids, because we want the products to stand for themselves. And I think they have. And we also don't want the kids to have the psyche of self-pity or deserving anything just because they're in that predicament.
Did you start with the product first, or did you start with the problem of teens and youth and first? What was
started with the problem first. In fact, there was a business before Messy Bessy that I had started up for the girls I was with, and it failed miserably. And that was why it was a temp agency. And then so that was why I told myself, okay, we need to create something where we can kind of have all the girls and boys in one area where we can hone their work ethic. You know, while they're here.
You start with the population, you figure out that you want to give them jobs. Like, what is it that you were trying to do as your mission as a startup?
So in the beginning, because I based it off of the Lancy Street Foundation in San Francisco, the initial kind of mission was to provide jobs, you know, kind of just that sense of dignity. Eventually, we realized they needed education too, because in the Philippines in particular, you're not hireable if you have no college degree. And so we started a college program kind of against all odds. You know, to put these kids through college is totally not easy, but you know, because that's what society demands of them. If you want to be out of poverty forever, then that's what we're doing. And so in 2012, we started our college program, and it's been going ever since. So 4 years after 2012, 2016, we had our first college graduates, and every 3 months we have more and more graduates. To this date, we still have more and more.
So the students come in, or the kids come in, then they become students and employees at the same time?
Yes.
Okay. And then how long is the process for them when they start to when they would say finish the program with you?
So it's pretty rigorous. Their first 9 months here is really just working and preparing them for school. And then they have to earn their spot they have to kind of apply to be a college scholar. They go through a panel, kind of like an American Idol panel, to prove themselves. And then they go through college. And then after their second year, we deploy them to partner businesses just so they experience other businesses, and just so we free up slots, and then we take in more kids. And then after that, when they graduate, they get to choose a job of their choice. So that's probably in their 5th or 6th year here. They choose, and that's our dream, that they choose their job, regardless whether it's with us or outside.
So they're with you 5, 6, 7 years?
Yeah, I mean 7, that's extreme already, but maybe on average around 5 years.
But then when they come in, how do they afford the college tuition? How do you help prepare them for university if they've been in exploited situations?
So we do have a lot of psychosocial programs. We are partnered with the top psych institute in the country. We also have youth mentors under our payroll who are assigned to at least 30 kids at a time. And so we have a lot of programs that support that side of the kids.
So then how do you measure impact? What's your accomplishment? What do you consider success as they're going through this time?
So our big numbers are having a bank account, having college credits, having a college degree. But the smaller things, so we're partnered with this organization in Boston that uses neuroscience to study the effects of poverty on the brain. And so because of them, we've been able to adapt this tool that measures kind of measures how well their brain, sorry, I'm going to get technical a bit here, okay? So apparently poverty affects the prefrontal cortex of your brain, which is your critical thinking. So they've found that people who go through poverty have an underdeveloped part of the prefrontal cortex. The beauty is it's plastic, so you can rewire it. So the tools that we use are able to rewire your brain to make sure that it's able again to set goals and then reach it, set goals and then reach it. They're not capable of having that critical thinking of, if I do this, then it will happen. So you have to kind of wire their brain. So right now we measure 10 aspects of their lives every 3 months or more, each child. So from financial savings to family stability to academic standing to work ethic, so all of this is measured. So we are able to see if they're improving in every aspect or not. And this way we're also able to design our program. So those of you who are scored low in financial, we'll make you go through this program. So it makes us more efficient also as social workers.
I mean, 5 to 7 years for a kid who's been exploited, that's got to seem like a lifetime for them. So when they come in, how many of them make it through the entire program? Do you have a high, I mean, I would think there'd be a high dropout rate because they're just like, wow, I have to really make a commitment, but they're not used to commitment. So,
so
what's the dropout?
In the beginning, when we didn't know what the hell we were doing, our dropout rate was like at 80%.
Wow. Okay.
So out of that first college batch we had of 10 kids, only 2 finished.
Wow.
Now though, our dropout rate has gone down to less than 3%, which is miraculous in the development sector. So I think it's really because the kids pay for their own schooling. It's also because we focus on the mindset scientifically, and it's not anymore like a heart-based, subjective kind of mentoring. So it's very scientific. We know exactly why they're not performing and how to address it.
Yeah, so actually I find with a lot of social entrepreneurs, we think that because we're doing good, people appreciate us, they'll throw us parades, and everyone that we help will be like, you know, but it's anything but that.
Exactly. Right? I mean, when you try to help, you may do more damage than good. So I think what we need to be seen as problem solvers, not as helpers. Because
so it's almost like our mindset that's the problem, right?
Yes, exactly.
So you mentioned you had an 80% drop off the first year. How long did it take you to get to 3%? And what were the big lessons you learned, or what were the big turning points? Yeah,
so it took us around 3 to 4 years to get to where we are today. And the big lessons is looking to the experts and not figuring it out ourselves, because a lot of people, especially in the developed countries, have figured it out. And so we adapted tools that have, they used MRIs and all these technologies that we don't have access to. And so we use that, we adapt it, make it a bit better, and then that's what we use. So that's one of the big things I think that made us successful in terms of the social program.
Okay, and so how many kids do you have now? What's like a couple success stories that you can like pull out, like, oh, that one was my favorite one?
Okay, so we have around 100 kids now in the program. Which success story? I don't know, but I guess for me the successes are really the most vulnerable ones. The ones who started, like I have one child who was a drug user, a drug peddler. He lost a lot of his friends in the extrajudicial killings that's happening now in Manila. But he made it out of that system, and it was really, we were all doubting that he was going to finish the program, but now he's graduated and he's working now. He was pirated from us. He's working now in an international organization that recruits kids who were like himself. So it's like a full circle. It's really beautiful. That's great. But how we dealt with him was really difficult, and we learned so much from that.
Okay, so what did you learn?
Well, I learned, one, that it's really not enough to just focus on him, because his attitude was great. But then we had to go as far as going to his house, talking to his dad, meeting his mom, figuring out what was happening with his siblings. So family was a big issue with him. And then he also had a lot of mental health issues, and so we had to address that too. So it's very complex. It's a complex issue that requires complex solutions.
Well, and I find that a lot of times we try to oversimplify. So, but then it's really complex. So how do you, you've got a product that has a process, that you have an investment, that you have machinery, that you have, but then you have the software, which is the people, which are very complex, right? How do you maintain balance? Like, how do you know when to, like, why do you not give up on some of these kids when you should, to maintain your process? Like, how do you look at these things?
I don't know. I ask myself that every day. But we approach everything, both business and social program, with a lot of rigor and a lot of science. So we try to, like with the kids, we try to give a lot of tough love, but there's a whole lot of structure under it. And I think that's what makes us survive over the years. In the beginning, we've been burnt out because we were just so attached to the kids. But now we kind of are stronger and we know how to kind of define what we do. But we never close the doors on them. So we've terminated kids, but we always tell them, please come back. Show us that you've done well outside and come back. It's never a never. It's a no for now, but come back.
How often does that happen?
Not very often, but it has happened. Maybe 3 times, I think.
Well, you gotta have hope, right? And you gotta give them that chance. So.
And we'd like to think that even if they didn't finish the program with us, that their lives have changed even for 2 years or 3 years with us.
So over the last decade, how many kids have you brought through the program? How many have left the program?
Yeah, so we've had over, I think, 60 graduates to date. All of them now are in jobs paying above minimum wage, very stable jobs, yeah. Both here and outside of Messy Bessy.
Now, you have a product here
Yes.
that seems to be doing very well because it's paying for all of this. How have you balanced your profit motive?
Yeah.
This is a product that could be very profitable,
Yeah.
where you could scale it through distribution agreements.
Yeah.
You can just have one factory and just,
Yeah.
but you have this other side of the business, which is like the nonprofit side.
Yeah.
So one has to fund the other.
Yes.
How do you balance the profit?
Always in the center of that, especially when there are investors wanting to come in.
Yeah.
But for now, it's fully owned by myself. And we do get support from the nonprofits as well to take in more kids, more than the business can afford to. But in terms of the business, we've been growing steadily. I think perhaps a bit too slow for the business people.
Okay.
But prudence, I think, is kind of necessary if we're in this job also of trying to help these kids.
Right.
And so, yeah, it's a balance. I mean, I can't say we've cracked it.
Okay.
But as long as we're doing good growth and we're able to pay for all of this, I think we're okay for now.
Yeah, I mean, I can see like a lot of people be like, well, take the money and you can expand and you can help more
Help
kids,
more, yeah.
right? But is that something that you've thought through, and how would you approach that?
I mean, to be able to grow as fast as we can, possibly, will mean we'll need to take in more investors.
Yeah.
Investors means of the possibility of other interests.
There's a lot of talk about investment impact or impact investment, and there's so much money around. Like,
Yes.
is it really different than if someone came from a traditional background and said, hey, I want to work with you, I like your program?
Yeah.
Are they really all that different?
I think I haven't met enough impact investors, but the few ones I've met, I find that the returns they're demanding are very high. And on top of that, you have to create impact too.
Right.
And so I'm a little bit conflicted in terms of understanding what they really want.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is the rate that they're asking for higher than a traditional investor?
Typically, it's the same.
So it's actually more work for you. Because you have to do the same return, but you have to have impact too, so that the impact investor. So then how do you view scale? Like, you can scale the product through
Yes.
a traditional, say, retail platform.
Export. Yeah.
Export.
Yeah.
Domestically, can you scale?
Yes. So we're only in Manila right now.
Okay.
Yeah. But most of the Philippines, in terms of the market, is really concentrated in the big cities.
At least it's clear for you, so you know where to do it and how to do it.
Yes.
But then how do you scale the social side of the business? Does it
Yeah.
need to scale in line with this, or are you okay to keep that smaller while this explodes and then?
Well, in terms of the Messy Bessy business, we've always had this internal commitment to make sure that half of our workforce will always be our kids.
Okay.
It's kind of a crazy number,
Yeah,
but
sure.
we've seemed to meet it all through the years.
Great.
But that's not a lot. If you're talking 4 million, 5 million kids, if our business grows to 2,000, that's just 1,000 kids, right?
Yeah.
So it's not a lot. So we've always looked at replication.
Yeah.
We've always looked at replication, because what we feel like we've done here is we've perfected, it's not totally perfect, but we've tried to perfect the system in a small scale, and hopefully we'll be able to convince other businesses to take in our program the way we've done it, right? So if a business like ours is able to thrive with half of our population as these kids, then what about these giant companies who take in just 10% or 2%, right? The workforce in the Philippines is around 40 million. So if these companies take in an average of 8% working students, then that makes it 5 million.
Have you developed a program, platform, training that you can offer to other organizations to help do that?
Yeah, somewhat. It's not yet there. I'd like to focus more on that soon. Yeah.
And is that something that you would give away? Is that something that you would charge for? Is it like, how did you view that?
I would love to give it away, but if these companies will want us to step in, and I'd understand if they do, especially when it comes to psychosocial health or facilitating with the schools, then of course we'll have to charge for that. But we'll always, as a business person, I'll always want it to be mutually beneficial, right? I mean, it's a win-win situation. Win-win-win for the kid too.
So this channel's a lot about Asians, sustainability, innovation, and entrepreneurship coming together to create like this scalable good.
Yeah.
Why did you choose entrepreneurship? You used to be in corporate. You could work for a big foundation. You could work in the government. Like, why was this the vehicle for you?
I think personally, I enjoy creative problem solving. I love creating new things, and in big organizations, it's a little bit harder to do that, I think. I don't know, my dad was an entrepreneur, so I do enjoy it.
A little bit in the blood?
Yeah, a little bit. And I enjoy branding, I enjoy marketing, so that side of it I enjoy too.
Okay. So you say enjoy a lot. How has this process been for the last 10 years? Like, if you look at it, it's always a struggle. We talk about this a lot. What gets you through the difficult times when you're having them?
Well, obviously, I think the beauty here is that, as you can see, we work alongside the kids, right, every day. I mean, I'm literally 5 feet away from some of the strongest people I've ever met. And so that in itself is a gift. And I see it when I talk to my managers, you know, the professionals who chose to be in the team. They're so overwhelmed with a sense of purpose of working here, and so am I. And then also, the passion also of everybody in the team is what keeps me going. I mean, if that weren't there, I would have given up already.
Yeah, I mean, passion's a great fuel source, but it's something that fits in spurts. Like, you need to tap into it, and sometimes like, you know, it's not starting.
I mean, every morning, right, on these bleachers, we have morning sessions where we spend 10 minutes discussing values. And it's one of the favorite things the kids do. And we realize these values are things that they don't get to discuss, like we have, you know, in our homes, you know, every day, on our dining tables. These kids, but these kids, you know, we talk about value. Like, this week was all about courage. The other week was about altruism. You know, some are really deep, and they really appreciate it. And it's kind of like a bonding session for all of us.
So we were talking upstairs about how you are now looking to bring in a COO, more process focused, release you to go out and look at the businesses differently, expand it. What's your process for finding your number two, and what do you think is like kind of like the core things they must have?
What we're looking for really for this position is someone who is very entrepreneurial, someone who's willing to do things that have never been done before, and someone who has a growth mindset. So always looking for the next opportunity. Everything's changing so much, especially in retail, and so someone has to be open to that.
Is that someone that you can find internally, or does it really have to come from the outside and you want someone with like a retail background who just loves your mission? Yeah,
I mean, right now I think we're going to have to look outside. Doesn't necessarily have to be a retail background, but someone who, you know, kind of is like a go-getter. That's what we need. That's what I feel we need, because we have very good executors in the team. But we need someone who can think out of the box and who's willing to take risks.
Yeah, and actually I find that myself. I have amazing programmatic teams. They can just get it done, and they're focused, and the process for them, you know, whether it's for clients or for the impact, or like they can set targets, right? But to find that person who wants to be like, this is where I want to take the organization next, that's a little bit different. So my question to you would then be, I've actually found a number two. I kind of released, she took off with it. And I remember the first point I was like, I'm really uncomfortable with this, because she was making decisions that I won't say I didn't understand, but I didn't see it the same way. It wasn't my vision anymore. But over time, I was like, I'm really happy to see this. So, are you ready for that? Like, are
probably
you ready?
Not. I'm a control freak, so probably not. But the thought of being able to focus on the social program, on the replication, the thought of starting up other businesses or investing in other businesses, that excites me more. So, ready or not, I will let go.
And with other businesses, would it be something along this, like an extension, or you want to do something totally different with the same population, or you just want to try something totally new?
Well, I want to come up with other product lines, maybe not related to this, but still, of course, environmentally conscious. Yeah, I'd like to test also the social program in other industries. So that's something, and I want to build more brands too.
If you were speaking to an aspiring social entrepreneur right now, they're looking at this going, I want to solve this issue. What's a few tips you would give them to prepare for this journey?
Okay, one is never assume you know what the problem is. Yeah, so that's number one for sure. And two, I think, is just keep showing up at work. You'll never know the answer, and you'll never know how to build a business. That's what my husband was telling me. Just keep showing up. You'll figure it out. That's what I did. And 12 years later, I think it worked. So yeah. Okay. And surround yourself with people smarter than you.
That helps.
Yeah, that helps.
Okay, now you're talking to a current social entrepreneur who's maybe in the middle of the grind and like plateaued, stuck, looking at the next step. How do they get unstuck?
Oh, that's tough. I think, at least for me, I always go back to why I put it up in the first place. So like a few months ago, we went through a crisis, and I made sure I sat down with the kids and just had a conversation with them, not about the crisis, but just to reconnect. Yeah. And then I get reminded, and then I'm unstuck by that. Okay. So that's, yeah. So
you reset your focus.
Yeah, or just remind yourself of why you're doing this.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.